The Summer of Transfers, episode 2, and I'm starting off this episode with Declan Rice, the West Ham United captain, just won the Europa Conference League and all over the lips of all Arsenal fans. And it's been quite an amazing little period after the Europa League final where you've got West Ham fans saying that Arsenal is too small a club for Declan Rice to go to. I do understand that there's a little bit of rivalry. We've sold him so many players over the years. There's been rivalry from the 80s when they beat us in the FA Cup, probably their last major trophy. And there just seems to be some dislike, obviously, from the West Ham fans towards Arsenal. I don't know why, but for some strange reason, there's been some social media situations since it's been, well, not confirmed, but it's basically almost certain that Arsenal's going to be signing Declan Rice. And obviously there was topsy-turvy stuff today on social media as to the signing as well as other signings when it comes to Arsenal. Basically, you have the same journalists as obviously every 5 minutes because of chasing clout. They are reporting certain things, and then you get the copy and paste merchants, you get the in the knows, you get aggregators as well. So there's all sorts of information, and you need to be very wise as to who you believe, because at the end of the day, the past when it comes to Arsenal, CAICEDO, Mudryk, Vlahovic, these type of players that we were in for that never materialized. But from a Declan Rice perspective, so obviously Arsenal, the reported fee is 100 million. Arsenal is looking at getting Declan Rice tied to a long-term contract. They obviously want him to be part of the leadership group at Arsenal. He is a captain of West Ham United, and he's obviously part of the leadership group with England as well. I think Harry Maguire, Harry Kane, these guys tends to be the leadership group. Henderson leads the leadership group with England. So we're obviously getting a player here that's highly courted. Quite a few West Ham fans that I follow on social media, well, not follow, but tend to listen to. More people that's in the know, match going, they tend to feel that this guy is the real deal. And when I watched him against Arsenal specifically, and then also for England over the last year or two, I definitely see what they mean and what he can bring to our team, whether it's in the sixth role where Thomas Partey is currently playing, and that's generally where he plays for West Ham, but he can play in the 8 as well. So he can do the dual role. He can play with Thomas Partey, he can play with Jorginho, he can play with El Neni to a lesser extent. We obviously feel that Xhaka will go. So that is the positions that he tends to play. And then obviously his career, 204 Premier League games, 10 goals and 10 assists. So there's quite a few people that feels he can actually be a little bit more dangerous. Second half of the season scored quite a few goals, so he can be a little bit more dangerous when he plays a little bit more forward. You've obviously got the situation where he plays alongside Souček and Paqueta in the midfield 3 for West Ham. So he can play left 8, right 8. He can play the 6th position, and I think that Arsenal will have a gem of a player. So basically the rumours that I kind of believe, so when I say kind of, you have to take it with a pinch of salt. I'm obviously all the way here in South Africa, so I can't vouch for any of the information, but there are obviously certain journalists that I followed over the years. I've been on social media, especially Twitter, for a decade and a half. So obviously somewhere along the line I needed to have gotten to know who is in the know. So obviously the likes of, I'm not going to say Fraudrizio, so that's another copy and paste merchant that probably gets his news quite a little bit later on when it comes to key deals. But obviously he's a journalist, he's well respected, as a YouTube channel, obviously another clout chaser. So he has obviously his bits of information all over Europe. But obviously Ornstein is one that we tend to believe, and then there's Charles Watts, Tom Canton, from the Guna Talk TV. So those are the type of people that I tend to listen to. They obviously have their opinions, and then they obviously have people that they know. I'm sure it's people that's close to agents, people that's close to clubs, and part of the bits of information that's coming through is, first of all, earlier today a whole host of journalists said that Arsenal the one that is basically been confirmed by more than one is that Arsenal obviously had a first bid in, and I actually think that these things they about 2 days behind the actual journalists in terms of the information. So the first bid, for example, would have been something that's a lot of installments, which West Ham don't want. They want a lot of money up front, and they are not too worried about the add-ons. Whereas Arsenal probably wants to do a lot of installments, and the add-ons will be winning the league, winning the Champions League, qualifying for the Champions League, and those are what is called difficult add-ons, in the sense that it's harder to obtain. And then you've got this thing of Manchester City is there. So if it is, you're going to win the league, we're going to compete for the league hopefully again, but you can't say that we will win the league, and therefore West Ham will probably sit back and say that we're not too big on the add-ons, but more to do with the upfront payments. So obviously wanting Arsenal to do in less installments, so not over 6 seasons or 6 transfer windows, but something that gets done a little bit quicker, 2024, 2025, something like that. So that makes sense to me from a West Ham perspective. And then obviously journalists will let know that Manchester City is in for Declan Rice. Now obviously Manchester City will be concerned because Arsenal obviously pushed them for quite a distance in the league, and I just can't see him wanting to go there. Yes, it's a great club, they just won the treble, but obviously in terms of Rodri is the position that he would court. I don't think he would play the Gundogan position, and obviously De Bruyne is still there, so he doesn't quite play that Gundogan position when you look at the attributes of Declan Rice. It's more the Rodri role, and they just play a little bit more differently to what he would play at Arsenal. And obviously at Arsenal he can play the 6 and the left 8 role, and you can look at it when you look at this the analysis board that Gundogan plays the left 8 role, but it's slightly different to the way that Arsenal would play it. Even though, funny enough, Gundogan is linked with Arsenal, he's still keeping close ties with Arteta. That I will discuss at the end of this video. So, in terms of do I think Declan Rice will happen? Yes, I do. Literally, just before I started making this video, there was these journalists that I follow that tends to think that Arsenal will get something done in the vicinity of 90 to 92 million. I don't know how much of that is going to be obviously upfront. Must be more than half. And then obviously Arsenal will then pay it off in installments, and then maybe easier appearance type add-ons, and then obviously qualifying for the Champions League again. And that obviously means making the top 4, challenging for the league, I'm assuming. What else? I can't see it being goals and assists because it's a defensive midfielder. And then obviously winning the Champions League, which is very difficult to obtain. So winning the Champions League, winning the Premier League, that's difficult to obtain installments, but you could maybe increase that to a higher number, I'm assuming. So from a Declan Rice standpoint, I think it's a strong chance that I don't know if it will be happening by tomorrow, but within the next 7 days, I think he will be an Arsenal player. And I really hope that he gets to play regularly, which he will. Obviously, Arsenal's situation in midfield, Xhaka likely leaving. You've got Sambi Lokonga that's probably not favoured, whether it's an attitude problem or a development situation. We've got El Neni that is going to be back in pre-season, but he's not really that top-class player, but he is staying. You've got Thomas Partey here and there, rumours of him possibly going overseas to Italy. I think he will stay. I think Jorginho will stay for another season. And then I don't think we're going to get CAICEDO. I am actually getting to CAICEDO in the second part of this video. So, Declan Rice can play the 6 and the 8 role. I don't know if it is that Declan Rice plays the 6 role and Thomas Partey is fit in a big game. Does Thomas Partey play an inverted right back role? That's something that we can probably look into, because there's going to be a whole pre-season for Thomas Partey to perform that role. But once again, Thomas Partey is getting on, and he's obviously had injury issues, and I am 1,000,000,000% certain that after the international break, there's a reason why Arsenal sent a physio through to Ghana. There was issues, so whether it was a minor issue that just bothered him for the entire campaign, post the last international window, and obviously his form dipped. So I definitely think there was an issue there. So with regards to Arsenal's midfield situation, I do think Arsenal need another midfielder. I don't trust El Neni for any period of time. And Declan Rice, will he play 50 games next season? I'm sure he will. He's basically done that for West Ham. So you've got a situation where you've got Jorginho, you've got Declan Rice, and you've got Thomas Partey. However, we've got the El Neni, Sambi Lokonga situation. Xhaka is going. I don't want it to be Declan Rice is a replacement for Xhaka. It needs to be kind of an added on thing, which means if Xhaka goes, we need to get another midfielder in, because I'm certain Sambi won't stay. And we don't want to make use of El Neni for too much in this upcoming season. So I think it will get done for, in total, 100 million. Obviously, Arsenal are not going to spend 100 million on Declan Rice now. So most of these things are done in installments. In fact, all the big deals are. Obviously, the ones that is 30 and lower, that probably gets done much sooner. Probably over a 12-month period gets paid to the club. So I think Arsenal will get this done. Declan Rice, our new number 41. Come on, you Gunners. Moises Caicedo, 21-year-old Ecuadorian. Now, I don't know what to quite make of this. Literally 20 minutes ago, there is rumors of him, or maybe more so his agents, basically saying that they're going to Chelsea. So a player that handed in a transfer request wanting to come to Arsenal for 70 million plus add-ons in January. Obviously, Brighton, they had all the right to say no, because they were obviously fighting for Europe, which they ended up getting, and Caicedo playing at right back, playing at central defensive midfield, playing a little bit more attacking. All these roles that he was able to portray helped them get to Europe. So obviously their decision was correct. They also extended his contract, which at the time I couldn't understand why it is that journalists at the beginning of this window said that he's going to go for the same amount of money when he got improved terms and a contract extension after the January theatrics. So that's strange, number one. Number two, Brighton are very difficult to deal with regards to buying players from them, in a good way for them, because they obviously got this guy for less than 5 million, and Arsenal did bid 70 million. So for them to say no, smart business once again from them, as they have done with other deals. And now it's being said, especially today, last hour or two, that they want close to 120 million, which I don't think they will get. Probably Chelsea would pay something close to that. But the whole Chelsea situation is now also a story in itself, because there's lots of talk, especially in the Athletic, that they have to clear the books up until the 30th of June, because I think there's a certain period that the FFP gets calculated when they count back. So I don't even think it will affect them this season, but it could for the following season or for a January transfer window. So they need to sell players, and this whole Chelsea situation is now linked to the third story in this video, which I will get to. So all the deals is linked to the others. So it's like a domino effect. So so disappointing, I should say, that there's lots of talk that Arsenal were maybe just stepping back a little bit because they want to try to get the Rice deal done and possibly pursuing the Chelsea deal, which I will get to next. So they all kind of flow into each other. And it's very disappointing in the sense that handed in transfer requests in January, wanted to come to Arsenal, when I say it could be that it's all about the money, agents, trying to, because the way he also posted something on his Instagram, that's also mostly to do with the agents. And I think he did change agencies slightly before this post. So obviously aggressive agents trying to make money. And now it seems like another thing that was said, Caicedo wants Champions League football. Chelsea aren't even in Europe. So now that tells you it's non-sporting reasons that he's going to Chelsea. It's obviously not done it's all part of rumours at the end of the day, but quite a few journalists are saying that Arsenal did withdraw themselves from the Caicedo situation, probably not 100% because of the Rice and other deals, but probably because of the fee. So it is possible that It isn't 75 to 80 million that Brighton wants, but that they want north of 100 million. And Arsenal's not going to buy two players for 100 million in this window. In fact, Arsenal won't be spending 100 million in this window. It will obviously eventually, their top target, Declan Rice, will eventually get to 100 million after installments. But I can't see Arsenal doing business with Brighton again. Trossard had a couple of months left in his on his deal. Ended up going for quite a substantial amount for a player that was a little bit, okay, well, you can't say he was out of favour because he was doing really well for Brighton in the first half of the season. And then obviously Arsenal spent 50 million on Benjamin White. So we have given them quite a bit of money. So defensive midfielder, he can play, obviously he played right back, was fantastic against Arsenal, actually injured Martinelli in the Brighton victory at the Emirates not long ago, actually a couple of weeks ago, and he obviously plays in the holding midfield row, can also, similar to Rice, play the 6 and the 8 position. In fact, Arsenal's Thomas Partey, similar, can play right back, left 8, and obviously the 6 position. So I personally would have loved Arsenal to get both CAICEDO and Rice, but it just looks like he is going to go to Chelsea. Even while I'm doing this video, there could be again a change from a journalist saying that he's not going there and that Man United's interested. I don't think Man United will be doing any business or major business anytime soon because they are still working out their takeover business. However, they could become big spenders at the end of the window if they can get their Saudi business in. However, I think the likes of CAICEDO, Rice, these type of players would have left for other clubs already. That's why Arsenal are trying to push, seemingly are trying to push to get quite a few deals done early. And that's what they need to do to avoid, unfortunately, what these buying or selling clubs are doing. They are trying to not raise funds, but they're trying to entice bidding wars, and that's something that Arsenal are not keen on. We're not that aggressive when it comes to bidding wars. We are aggressive enough in terms of offering quite a nice wage package, even for players that we don't think deserves that. But in terms of bidding wars, they don't go for that. That's how Arsenal does their business, so they try to keep things a little bit more on the cleaner side. I'm pretty certain they do pay quite a bit of agent fees, but not as much as the other clubs to get the deals done. So that's why I think Arsenal are not that aggressive. It's more to do with the project, which is a very good project because they were able to tie down most of the younger players. So Moises Caicedo, I said about 2 weeks ago in my Arsenal WhatsApp groups that I think Declan Rice will happen and that Caicedo, because of agents, will go to Chelsea. Thumbs down, Moises. Kai Havertz, Chelsea attacking midfielder, removed. I don't even call him a false 9, I call him a removed 9. Now, what happens with me and the transfer window is, first of all, I've obviously followed certain journalists that I constantly check up on, because not check up on as in stalking for information, but more to do with checking that these guys, they like to change their story every 5 minutes. Now, I know I've seen videos of journalists and agents explaining on YouTube that deals does change every 5 minutes, but it's the way that these guys tweet to catch you out. First of all, obviously to draw you in and to create hope, and then obviously to talk nonsense, to lie, blatantly lie, and then to just create that urgency when it comes to, I want this information now, and then it's a whole situation. Kai Havertz, I honestly thought that this was initially just a agent ploy or something like that. Well, it is an agent ploy because he is trying to get the move away from Chelsea, or the group of agents of Kai Havertz. But it seems like there's been contact from Jorginho, probably David Luiz, less so Willian. Who else is these Chelsea guys? I'm sure I'm missing someone. Peter Cech probably as well, just in terms of the whole Chelsea-Arsenal relationship. But Kai Havertz, so I'm going to be 100% clear on this. Always loved this player. always dreaded, even though it hasn't gone well for him, always dreaded when he plays against us because I feel he's intelligent. Now, you've got certain people that says he's not aggressive enough, he's lazy, he's lackadaisical, but when you go and look at his running stats, then that changes things. However, he's a more intelligent player, so he doesn't need to run as much as the likes of Odegaard. He's intelligent in the way he moves. Now, I'm not trying to sugarcoat this because it hasn't been a good or a great period for him. He is a Champions League winning goal scorer. So let's not forget that. And he does really well for Germany. Just a couple of days ago, played well for Germany. Regularly scores for Germany when he plays a withdrawn role. So not a false nine, more a withdrawn role where he gets to roam between left 8, number 10 position, and both left and wide right. And that is what Arteta likes. I read something about the fact that we're going to move around Saka, Jesus, in games, and then you could have that possibility within the pocket. So this withdrawn role that is not quite the false nine, where Kai Havertz tends to move into various pockets, dangerous areas where he can hopefully increase his goal contribution. 19 goals, 10 assists in 91 games for Chelsea, valued at 70 million. He's 24 years old, in that 21 to 26 bracket that Arsenal are looking at because they want to obviously keep these guys for a certain amount of time. So I definitely would be a thumbs up for this deal because we need to see if Arteta can get the Bayer Leverkusen form. Now, to get the Bayer Leverkusen and Germany form, you need to get this guy not playing the way he did for Chelsea. So he's not going to replace Saka or Martinelli. You're going to rather have lots of movement, and especially when he maybe comes on. So he might start where Jesus is. He might start in that position, but he will move around. And Jesus might play with him, Martinelli, Trossard. So it's actually quite exciting, provided Arsenal get the midfield. That's why there's quite a few stories on the midfield when it comes to Arsenal. And then I think after this deal is going to, if it gets done, then Arsenal needs to focus on the wing-back roles. Tomiyasu is going to be fit. Zinchenko is going to be fit. However, we need to maybe get one more in that can play an inverted role. And very likely Tierney has to go out. So I would be a yes for this deal. It sounds like it's going to be more than I expected. On my little list here, I've got it down as, or my player profile, I've got it down as 70 million that Chelsea value him at. I think it's, it's sounding like Arsenal's going to pay 60 million. I actually thought Arsenal would pay 40 million plus add-ons, which might rise to 50 million. But it looks like Arsenal might be paying 60 million if this deal gets done. If it's true, what some of these German journalists say, that it's actually basically almost done. And another thing, Chelsea are in a hurry to get things done because, like I just said, with the CAICEDO situation, they are obviously going to be in FFP problems, so they need to sell all these players. They've got a huge inflated squad, lots of players that were bought for huge amounts of money, the likes of Lukaku that's at Inter Milan. Inter's not going to be able to afford whatever Chelsea wants, so that's going to probably be another 2-year loan with drips and drabs coming in. However, remember what Chelsea did? Long-term contract so that they can try to bypass FFP. I don't think that's going to happen because the rules have changed. So Chelsea must sell. But it will be remarkable if Arsenal pay 60 million, which it sounds like we are going to do. It sounds like Arsenal are keen on Kai Havertz. Now, I am also keen based on how I think we can use him, but we cannot use him the way that Chelsea has. It has to be the way that Germany and Bayer Leverkusen has. He was one of the best young forwards or attacking midfielders. So some people say he might play the left 8 role, which I find it hard to believe that he will play that role. But in and around those positions, he could play. So almost like if it could be Arsenal play a double pivot, Rice Thomas, and then maybe you have... It's going to come across when you look at the analytics boards that he is in false 9 positions. But he will actually move a little bit right, a little bit left, a little bit deeper as well. And then it all depends on, do we use Martinelli? So it's actually quite exciting. It's quite a few ways that we could use him. If it is that this deal gets done, then I think that's not a bad deal. I can't see Arsenal going to go and buy a right winger that could maybe play striker, the same way where we bought Trossard that can play left wing and 9. So I don't know. I don't think that's going to be necessary because Trossard and Martinelli will cover left. Reece Nelson will cover right and left. Jesus will cover right forward and striker. Saka will cover right forward, and Havertz can cover 9 and the withdrawn role, not the false 9. Come on, Kai Havertz, let's get this deal done, but I don't agree with 60 million. So my final thoughts on the second episode of the Summer of Transfers is on what else does Arsenal need to do. So I've discussed in this video about the fact that I don't think I would have loved us to have CAICEDO and Rice as midfield buys. And obviously Kai Havertz, that's going to do this withdrawn role that I'm referring to, not the false 9 role. And obviously playing as a 9. But yeah, I think Arsenal is very important that we sort out the wing-back situation, or not wing-back per se, but obviously this inverted role that we're going to have with our fullbacks. Now, let's see who's there already. We've got Cedric Suarez that's going to come back. We're obviously going to look to sell him. We've got Tomiyasu, Ben White, that will probably play a little bit more towards where Saliba is now. So we're going to have the Saliba, Ben White situation where they will obviously play together in the sense that White at right back. However, we can't be in a situation where Ben White is playing all these games because his form also dipped a little bit. So Tomiyasu is coming back to cover right centre-back, left-back and right back, but he's not. He can't stay fit. He's missed both seasons. He's missed the end of the season run-ins. So it looks like Arsenal's going to have to try and get someone in there. I can't see it being Cancelo and the, how do I say his name? Castagne, the Belgian fullback who's actually playing regularly for Belgium. For some reason, I just feel like he's always injured for Leicester. And obviously, he played in a team that's been relegated as well. That's why Tielemans, we didn't really go for him. We don't seem to be interested in Maddison. Yeah, it's very difficult for me to kind of think as to the Castagne situation as to why it is that we would want him. He seems to be able to play the inverted role, and Arsenal wants their defenders to be able to have different roles, like a Ben White that can play right back and right centre back. You've got Zinchenko that can go into midfield and left back, and then obviously who else am I missing out on? Tomiyasu that can play right back and left back. Kivio can play left back. And then you've got Gabriel and Saliba, that's our centre backs, our starting centre backs. So it's going to be interesting to see if Arsenal get a right centre back in. I don't think they will. I think they're looking at an inverted fullback that probably plays mostly on the right. I'm not certain if we're going to get a youngster in, because is it going to be we sell Tierney to a Newcastle United and we get the inverted player that can play right and left, and then you've got the situation of Tomiyasu and Ben White will be fullbacks, but they will cover centre back. Then you don't need to buy another centre back. You have the young inverted fullback that can play both sides. You've got Zinchenko, and then obviously Gabriel and Saliba as your centre backs, with Holding either still being kept or actually being told, listen, maybe it's time to move on. So it's interesting. It sounds to me like the way I'm speaking here now that we possibly need one defender coming in, not two. So this one defender must be able, and it's probably going to be the likes of a Cancelo. So if Arsenal can get under 50 million, if that's possible, a deal for under 50 million, ideally it would have been get the likes of Gundogan to play as a midfielder because he's free, obviously high wages, and a Cancelo where it's not that high wages but a high fee. So something like that would have been perfect, even though I don't think we're going to buy any Man City players other than a Gundogan because he's out of contract. So something to that effect where it's a fullback that can play both positions, because even though there's injury prone, I wouldn't say Saliba's injury prone, but he's had a very, very serious back situation. But we've got an injury prone Tomiyasu, and we are selling Cedric and Tavares and Tierney, I think. So all three of those guys are going. So maybe it is that we do need a left back and a right back. I don't know. I don't see Arsenal buying two fullbacks, but it's tricky because the outlay of money for the likes of Rice and Havertz now. However, because we're not going for CAICEDO, maybe it is that there will be another midfielder coming in. We've got and then one fullback. I think we can still possibly get 3 more. It's very difficult to say that we're going to get somebody that's a left back and somebody that's a right back, and both inverted. So I think maybe one that can play both roles, and then another midfielder, and then we've got obviously HAVERTZ and Rice. I think we need 5 players, but it sounds like we're going to get 4. Rice, HAVERTZ, another midfielder, and a fullback that can play both right and left back and is inverted. So actually, while I was talking, I was thinking about that now. So 5 players. The reason why 5 is I thought maybe there could be another wide player, but we are now probably going to announce Nelson soon. So it's interesting. It's interesting because Arsenal have to fight on more than just the league front next season, the Champions League, and we have to do better in the cups. So it's going to be interesting to see. But for now, let's try to get the Rice deal done. And then if it is that we're super serious on HAVERTZ, let's get that deal done. And then we have a look at what other gaps to fill. We do still have got very good youngsters coming through. Cozier Dewberry, who's a wide forward. He could maybe come through the season. Brooke Norton-Cuffy probably needs another season. He was at Coventry, I think it was, that didn't, unfortunately, they lost in the playoff final to Luton. So I think Brooke Norton-Cuffy needs another season out on loan. So these are youngsters coming through. So I think only Cozier Dewberry is a youngster that will maybe come through. The one Neri guy, it seems like he's going to go to one of the other clubs, Man United, or Man City, going to their youth teams, and then they will sell him for loads of money because he's very talented. But I think his agents are pushing for him to get to a club, get more money at the other club or fast-tracked into the Arsenal team, and I don't think that's going to happen. So there are youngsters that we can use. Very difficult to use them in the Champions League. Obviously, it's not Europa League. And Carabao Cup, if you use too much youngsters, then you get knocked out by a Premier League team first time around, like we did to Brighton. Then you're out of that competition. And then you get an unlucky FA Cup early game against Man City away. You're out of that competition as well. And then you can't choose these youngsters. I know we did have a third round easy tie away from home. I think it was Preston, wasn't it? So we did have an easy third round game, but then fourth round away to Man City. So all of these things are things to look at when you look at the Arsenal situation and their transfers. But for now, let's get Declan Rice done. Hopefully early next week. We are playing on the 13th of July. We play Nuremberg at the Adidas complex. So in and around that time, Arsenal will be starting off the preseason campaign. Hopefully we can get 2 players in. If it is that we get HAVERTZ and Rice, they are playing internationals as we speak, so it's going to be very tricky for them to be available on that week at the Adidas. Maybe they will be, I don't know. So we'll see. Up the Gunners, the summer of transfers, episode 2.